And I'm proud of that fact, even though that's not something that's in my control at all. I'm just glad to be first. I'm the number one sports show if you rank us based on time. If you just rank us chronologically in the order that we show up, then I suppose I'm number one, and I'll take it. I'll take it. So take that, everybody else. Take that, everybody else. You know what I'm saying?
You like that? You like that?
I do like that, Kirk. I do. So before we get further into everything, I'd like to talk about self-awareness and consciousness in sports, because I get into this conversation with my girlfriend and, quite frankly, my mother and just family and people close to me regularly, because they are not as big of sports fans as I am. My brother's been on the show before. We've talked about basketball. He's a nut. He follows college. He follows the NBA almost obsessively. I don't know anybody else that follows it more closely than him. Okay, he just will watch a random college basketball game in the middle of the week. Like, if they had on LSU versus SMU, he would sit down and watch it because it was on in the middle of the week. Now that LSU has Ben Simmons, that's going to be an easier game to watch in life. But if that was on, he would watch it. I wouldn't. I have better things to do with my life. There's other sports that I could be watching. There are other things that I could be doing. I cannot do it. He will watch basketball just to watch basketball. That's just the kind of guy he is. But most of the people in my life aren't as big of sports fans as I am. And that's fine. That's okay. But here's the issue, is that a lot of people believe and have this idea that sports don't do anything for anybody. And in fact, if they do something, if they do have an impact of some kind, the overall net impact is negative. And I know many of you who have played sports or have just enjoyed watching it may disagree with that. I certainly do. And I think that as sports fans, I think we have to be aware of what we look like when we enjoy sports, because the Redskins will score a touchdown and I'll lose my mind. And part of that is the disappointment that I have from them, that I expect them to fail so often that when they succeed, I'm besides myself with glee. Like, I'm actually happy because I was just like, oh, I honestly did not see that coming. I am amazed at what happened there. I expected you to fail and then you did not fail. So I have that part of it, but we don't necessarily pay attention to how we come across. And when it comes to the amount of money spent in sports, people outside of this business, people outside of this particular interest, because despite how big sports are, it is rather niche. It is a pretty niche thing to like sports. Like, when you are targeted as a sports fan, the things that you are being targeted with are things that only you could enjoy. DraftKings and FanDuel are trying to reach you on a number of different platforms. Okay, we have DraftKings ads running during Sean Hannity here on Hot News Talk Radio. They're trying to find you wherever you are. You are that niche. There are things that you as sports fans, only you buy. Okay, there's things that only I would buy as a sports fan. Paying to play fantasy sports, daily fantasy sports, that's something that only we would pay for. Right? That is literally something that only we are interested in. And so we don't realize a lot of times how, to the outside of this, how pointless it looks to other people. And I know that it's not pointless in a fact that you are capable of doing good things with sports. You are capable of making great social impacts, reaching out to others. You know, the humanitarians that have been in sports, the Jalen Roses, the Walter Paytons of the world, and they don't necessarily come off. Those guys were definitely self-aware. They realized that they had an impact, that people looked up to them for something that they were able to do that not a whole lot of people can do. that athletes are physically impressive. They do physically impressive things all the time. And that's why people look up to them, especially kids. To a kid, an athlete is no different than a superhero. He's doing something you can't do. You can dream of doing it, but you can't actually do it. And Kareem Abdul-Jabbar called out Michael Jordan earlier this week in an interview in Washington, D.C., a live interview with NPR. And basically, he said that Michael Jordan chose commerce over conscience. And we'll listen to what Kareem had to say.
You can't be afraid of losing shoe sales if you're worried about your civil and human rights. You can't be worried about that. It's just the way it is. He took commerce over conscience. It's unfortunate for him, but he's got to live with it.
Athletes have a responsibility, a social responsibility, to use the platform that they're on to make the world a better place. And most of them, and it's highly underreported, but most of them do that. Most of them do that they actually do try to make the world around them a better place. You know, it's not a secret what LeBron has done. Okay, and it's not for publicity. You don't get anything extra for doing it. Stephon Marbury makes his sneakers affordable for people with lower incomes. The Michael Jordan sneakers cost $200. If Michael Jordan really wanted to reduce the cost of those shoes, he could. He really could. He chooses not to because he likes money. A lot of us do. And if that's what Michael Jordan wants to do, like Kareem said, that's his choice, and he's going to have to live with it. But your shoes are being made overseas in China by people who have little to no other options, making a pittance a day making your shoes that come over here, and then you've got $200, $250 shoes that people are killing each other for. That yes, if Michael Jordan wanted to do something to make the world better, he could, but he won't because he likes money. And that's Michael Jordan's bad decision. But the good and the positive things that people do often get underreported because it's not as interesting. We live in a scandal culture. We like scandals more than we like people doing the right thing. It's not as fun to talk about. It's not as interesting to talk about. So even though it's important to talk about what Adrian Peterson did and what Ray Rice did and what Greg Hardy did and what Hope Solo did and what Sepp Blatter did, those things are all important. They are. And I want to use this show as a place to talk about those things. To use these things and make the world a little bit better. To make us all a little bit more self-aware of what it is that we are paying attention to, rooting for, interested in. I want to use this show to do that, and I appreciate you taking the time to listen because to me it's important. We can, and I think we do enough that very often we try to do our best to make the world a little bit better. And you see guys, truly good guys, raised well by their parents, get an opportunity to get in front of an NFL stage, an NBA stage, a Major League Baseball stage, and say the right things and do the right things. And for me, having those role models growing up, those people that I could look up to that were willing to do those things, that was hugely, hugely important in my development. And I'm really glad. Like coming up this weekend, LSU, Alabama, the hype train. I've been riding it since Monday, and it is the game of the week. I'm going to tell you right now, like of all the games that you ought to be watching, I'm not even going to save that one for last because that's the game of the week. It just is. It's going to be the best game happening this weekend. And there's a lot of good games. There's TCU and Oklahoma State. There's like a lot of good games out there, a lot of ramifications. That's the best one. Straight up. But in that game is Leonard Fournette. Leonard Fournette of LSU, the running back that stomps on people like they're Goombas and he's Giant Mario is a guy with a great heart. And he talked about it over Halloween. He saw a lot of kids dressed up as him, and he realized the impact that he has as an athlete, that people just look up to him. That if it wasn't him that people were looking up to, they would be looking up to some fictional character. Kids will find somebody to look up to. Okay, it's not a complete vacuum. If it's not you as their parents, it's somebody else. And I wouldn't mind a kid looking up to Leonard Fournette. He's very humble and his humility is real. I don't want your fake humility. If you're not actually humble, don't be humble. But I think his humility is real, and I think that it is true and honest, and that is the kind of thing that when you're a kid and you see a guy going out there dominating the way that he does and then giving credit to his offensive line. And Todd Gurley did this too. He was talking about the Rams and his time with the Rams and all of the things that he's done so far this season. He's just looked absolutely incredible. I don't think that anybody thought that he was going to be this good coming off the ACL injury. And what do you know? Todd Gurley is out there saying that thanks to his receivers and offensive line blocking downfield, that's why he's doing as great as he does. That he says he just breaks a tackle here or there. Like, no, he doesn't just break a tackle here or there. Todd Gurley is really good, really fast. He makes smart decisions, and that he should take credit for those things, but he doesn't. He defers to his offensive line, and he defers to those people, and he says that they're the ones that give him the room to operate and give him the strength to operate. And I appreciate that. That's the positivity that you need going forward, and Michael Jordan never had that. Michael Jordan was not humble, which is fine. If that's who Michael Jordan actually is. Michael Jordan is hugely talented, but very petty and in a lot of ways vindictive, and that helped him on the basketball court. It did. Michael Jordan's revenge was legendary. Michael Jordan had a legendary revenge. Right? That's something that you can't take away from him at all. Michael Jordan's revenge was absolutely legendary. If you said something to Michael Jordan on the court, he was coming to destroy you. And I don't mean just physically. I mean metaphorically, spiritually, Michael Jordan was coming to hurt your feelings with his way of playing basketball. Which is pretty intense. You know, the stories about Michael Jordan talking to people on the basketball court and counting down from 50. Like, stories like that are pretty cool. Those stories are pretty cool, and I find them deeply fascinating, and I like people to be who they are. But there is a lot of positivity in sports, and I like that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar has written books and tried to be an activist and used the social consciousness to try and promote something positive with his fame and with his popularity. Because, I mean, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is a guy that when he played in college basketball, he basically, college basketball outlawed the dunk. They banned the dunk because he was the only person who could do it. He basically was a superhero. Michael Jordan getting called out, and I think that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is absolutely correct. This is AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
I love my Flex loan from Advance Financial. I needed cash, I needed it fast, and I didn't want to get a payday loan. My Flex loan from Advance Financial is not a payday loan. It's a line of credit. I only pay for the cash I need, and I only pay for the time that I need it. There's no lump sum payment. My Advance Financial Flex loan is an open line of credit, and I can get cash anytime I need it.
Visit one of our 24/7 locations and get the cash you need today. Advance Financial. Welcome.
Tired of insurance companies? Tired of doctors that won't spend time with you? Do something different. Leave the sick care model of medicine and come to Dr. Danielle Mitchell, the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health, where we're interested in long-term health solutions, not the quick fixes. Come see me, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, at the Chattanooga Sports Institute and Center for Health. I'm all about the long-term healthcare solutions and doing what's best. On the web, you can find me at ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. That's ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Or call us at 875-1005, 875-1005, or find us on social media, Facebook, Dr. Danielle Mitchell, or the ChattanoogaSportsInstitute.com. Let's go, ya!
This is America Now with Meghan McCain.
President Obama makes Jimmy Carter look like Napoleon Bonaparte. We have a president that leads from behind, and when America doesn't lead, bad things happen.
Meghan McCain, weekdays at 7 p.m.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Sky Aerial Services uses advanced drone technology to give you a better perspective and depth of your property and project. We offer aerial photography and video for your business, farm, home, or advertising campaigns, as well as editing services to complete the experience. Call us at 423-521-0284 and see how we can help you tell your story about your business, property, or project. We work with real estate professionals, both commercial and residential, developers, engineer inspectors, surveyors, ad agencies, auto and boat dealers, mapping services, insurance inspectors, corporate marketing, charity events, weddings, and photographers. Our consultation is free. Call 423-521-0284. That's 423-521-0284, or visit our website, skyaerialservices.com. Sky Aerial Services. The sky is our limit.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Costa, host of the Costa Report, every Sunday at 9 a.m. Mark your calendars right now, because my guest this week is none other than one of the leading GOP presidential contenders, neurosurgeon Dr. Ben Carson. Don't miss a revealing conversation with candidate Ben Carson this Sunday at 9 a.m. on the Costa Report, right here on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
All right, I didn't mean to bore you to death there with all my talk about social consciousness and all of those things, because it is LSU Alabama week, also TCU and Oklahoma State play, and this is all top four stuff here for the College Football Committee, and whether or not Alabama and LSU are going to be in the top four next week pretty much is determined by this game here, by the two of them. Okay, so I did blather on a lot about that. I am known for gasbaggery. I don't shut up at times, especially when there's something that I feel is hugely important that needs to be talked about, and I really would like that, you know, we watch these games and then think about the things that are positive that we can take from them, that, you know, the perseverance and the ability to overcome adversity and the ability to take defeat well, because you don't always win. Your favorite team doesn't always win. And yet somehow they manage to come out next week and do this whole grinding thing all over again. So, I mean, there's a lot of lessons that you can learn from sports that are positive and helpful. And I know that I have, and that a lot of good things in my character I learned from watching sports with my dad. That we would watch football on Sundays in the basement in our house in Maryland, and he did a really good job of highlighting what character skills I could take from the things that we were watching, and that hard work that he would, like, Peyton Manning is probably the biggest thing, because we would always talk about Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning didn't just wake up one morning and get good. That Peyton Manning was working all the time to be better, and he was working when other people were no longer working. Peyton Manning is great, not just because he had great arm strength early in his career, but because he mastered the game mentally. That was all hard work. Peyton Manning is seeing the game in a different way than everybody else is seeing the game, And it's because he worked harder to see the game that way than anybody else did. And nobody else was spending that amount of time. Peyton Manning notably lived in the film room, known for it, breaking down film. Okay, there's a reasonable amount of time that you could be said to be doing this, and he's not. He's not just doing it for the reasonable amount. He's going beyond that. I always respected that, and I always appreciate that I learned that from my dad. And that sports was that bonding agent for us. I like that. And I don't want us to lose sight of that the way that Michael Jordan appears to have. That Michael Jordan doesn't care if you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you buy shoes, he's cool. Everybody buys shoes. Michael Jordan couldn't care less what it is that you believe ideologically and whether or not that's good or bad for America. Do you or do you not buy shoes? Do you or do you not want these Jordans? I don't want us to lose sight of it like that. And I don't think we have, but I'm worried that we can. That it's a possibility that is out there. That's all I'm saying. Okay, and speaking of another person who is not wholly self-aware, and wholly paying attention to everything that is happening to him in the world, would be Derrick Rose, except that now I can no longer find my audio because, of course, I can't. This is delightful. Delightful. I had my Derrick Rose audio, and now it's gone. So, anyway, Derrick Rose had a monster game last night, and he was playing at a pretty low level earlier in the season. He opened the season against the Cavaliers, and he looked fantastic, but then after that, he looked okay, and he looked pedestrian, and there was a lot of reports about Derrick Rose and the Bulls breaking apart, and whether or not this was the beginning of the end. ESPN's Brian Windhorst had reported that this is the beginning of the end for Derrick Rose and the Chicago Bulls, and then last night he goes out and does Derrick Rose things. So he played at that MVP level that we had seen previously, and I don't know if we're going to see that consistently from him ever again because of the injuries. But I can't think of another person like Derrick Rose where he's injured, where bad things happen to him, and we blame him. Isn't that weird? Bad things happen to Derrick Rose, and we blame Derrick Rose. Like, how on earth does that even work? Bad things happen to Derrick Rose, and we blame Derrick Rose. I don't get it. I really don't get it. And also, I don't mean to sound distracted. I really don't. But my audio was there. I was very excited to play it. I had it edited down from the whole, however long that soundbite is. I had it edited, and then now it's gone. And I don't know how to use this computer well enough to use it. So now I just sound like a whining complainer. But I'm distracted because I was just like, I was very excited to have that. And I don't know where it's gone. And now Russell's here to help me find it. So there we go. I don't know if I should move on or if I should continue gas bagging. I have my personal there you go. It's all back. It's all back. I don't have Kirk Cousins anymore, but I can live without him. I needed Derrick Rose. So here's Derrick Rose talking about his perspective with all of the rumors surrounding him and the Bulls breaking apart and his surviving through that and people's perception of him not necessarily being self-aware.
Anytime your name is mentioned, it's headlines in Chicago. The last couple of days, there's been rumors that the Bulls are trying to start a departure with you and breaking ways. How did you handle all that? What's your opinion?
I'm so numb to it, man. I try to stay away from it. I know who I am as a person and as a player. I know how hard I work. I know how much I dedicate my whole life to this sport. Everybody else has their opinion. That's their opinion. I'm okay with that. I'm just here to play.
And that's TNT's Craig Sager, courtesy of TNT, obviously. And Derrick Rose, he talked about looking forward to free agency next year and all of those things. And I think that he does come off as not being particularly self-aware, but Derrick Rose is just a guy that's going to tell you whatever is on his mind. And I don't know why that has become such a bad thing, that it's just going to be, if you say the truth, if you say what's on your mind, we don't like it. We do not like it if what's on your mind is not what would necessarily be on our mind. That, yeah, okay, the season is starting and we want you to focus in on this season, but you're talking about free agency next year. So what about being excited for next year's free agency means that Derrick Rose isn't trying this year? What about that would even suggest that he's not trying? And I get it, because people are fed up with the amount of time that he's missed from the game. Like, I get it. But he's missed a lot of time from the game because of injuries that are not his fault. He did not elbow himself in the face. He did not tear his own ACLs. He didn't tear them. So I don't understand the hate, and I don't understand the anger, and it makes no sense to me. And I continue to be confused and absolutely flabbergasted. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio Clutch with Keon Rose. Make sure you follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. You can find us on YouTube right now. This show is live on YouTube right now if you'd like to see what my face looks like, especially the look of panic that I had when I looked down to find my audio and then it wasn't there. Because I'm telling you, there's few things on earth worse than that you just had a plan of things to say, and then your plan just starts to go awry and everything becomes sideways and you no longer think that the world makes sense. I'm telling you, there are a few things on earth worse than that. And if you wanted to see the look on my face while I was panicking, looking for my audio and not able to find it, and then Russell coming in to save my life, that you can find on YouTube. Simply search Hot News Talk Radio. And this episode will be stored on the internet forever, where people can continue to laugh at my dull-wittedness. Like, that's going to be there for always if you ever want to track that down and find it. Not that I have future employers to impress or anything in life. You know. So there's that. Make sure that you stream us live on hotnewstalkradio.com and the TuneIn Radio app. Simply search Hot News Talk Radio. Give us a follow and press play. And you can have Hot News Talk Radio everywhere you go. So now I'm going to jump back to the things that I suppose everybody cares about, because I don't want to sound like nobody likes it when you're listening to the radio and you're waiting for the radio host to talk about the team that you care about or the thing that you care about, and then they proceed to not do that thing for a very long time. I am capable of doing that. I'm sorry. I have very national sensibilities. My dad was in the Army. I'm an Army brat, and we moved around a lot when I was a child. And so I don't have necessarily something that I feel is mine, and I feel like a man without a country, and then I get to talking, and then we don't end up touching on anything in particular. I would like to talk a little bit about Baylor and Kansas State last night, because both Mr. Judd and I picked Baylor to cover the 17 points that they were predicted to by Vegas, followed by them, of course, not at all doing that. But even though Jarrett Stidham came in and played incredibly well, I mean, incredibly well is a little bit of an understatement. He looked amazing. I mean, it really does on some level look plug and play for Baylor. 23 of 33 passing for 419 yards and 3 touchdowns. And then he rushed for 1. I mean, he looks good. And they still have all that speed everywhere. Corey Coleman, KD Cannon. I mean, they're fast, okay? They're going to continue to be fast. Shock Linwood is picked up 72 yards for them. Like, Baylor's going to continue to play fast no matter what. I do notice that, of course, as the game went on, they scored less and less. They had 14 points in the first quarter and then 7 in the second and third, respectively, and then 3 points in the fourth. And they weren't able to stop Kansas State from being pesky and coming back and trying to, score 14 in the fourth quarter there. And that's the reason why they didn't cover, which, while we both picked Baylor to cover the 17 points, it's pretty it's pretty interesting that game was a whole lot closer than it was. I mean, it was a 7-point game. I mean, that's one possession. But Kansas State will do this. Kansas State will look like a real football team from time to time, and then sometimes they'll look lost and confused and like they don't know what they're doing. And so Baylor continues to be perfect and continues to complicate this whole thing in college football that is the playoff. Also, Mississippi State beat Missouri, and I think that we both picked Mississippi State, and that's correct. So there you go. We're both 1-1 to start. Coming up this weekend as well, games that you need to be watching. LSU, Alabama. I don't think I need to tell you anymore, but I will continue to tell you because you need to watch this game. You do not have a choice. You do not have a choice. Games that you need to be watching this weekend. Spend a little bit of time talking about Clemson and Florida State because people like to watch Florida State lose. They're ranked 16th in the nation in the college football playoff poll. And what's interesting to note, of course, is that Ohio State, when the first poll came out, was also ranked 16th. And then they ended up, of course, number 1 and the national champions. Florida State's got an opportunity to do that. They're a one-loss team. They lost on a weird last-second field goal block by Georgia Tech. And that is their only loss so far this season. And they need to win out in order to have a chance to keep going in this thing. Everett Golson has looked very good. He's very smart with the football. I think a lot of times he doesn't necessarily make big plays when he can because he'll take the safer play. He'll take the safer pass and pass up on a lot of big play opportunities sometimes, which he hasn't thrown, I don't believe, but 1 interception this season. And that's why he makes the good football decision, but sometimes he passes up the opportunity to make the great football decision. And that's a little unfortunate for Florida State because they're going to need him to do that tomorrow against Clemson, who's a great offense and a great defense and ranked number 1. And I believe deservedly so, that they have a lot of quality wins so far. I think that they look good and they look polished. And this is going to be another test for them. They beat Notre Dame already, so it's not like they need like a really huge test again, but they look good. They really did, and they can get to the title game in their league and all of those things, and that's going to be, you're going to need to win your title game. I think we learned that last year. I think the Big 12 learned their lesson the hard way that they named co-champions. They don't have a title game in the Big 12, but they named TCU and Baylor co-champions, and I think that because they did that, neither team got in. You have to definitively win your league. And the Big 12 may have shafted both of those teams in naming them co-champions. Clemson's going to have to win theirs. This stuff is going to start shifting out. I'm going to give you some of the other games that you need to watch this weekend, regardless of the sports. This is Clutch with Keon Rose on AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240.
Are you tired of feeling like just another account number to your financial advisor? Try something refreshingly different. Call Edward Jones Financial Advisor Patrick Neal in Hickson at 870-7894. Edward Jones, making sense of investing. Member SIPC.
We've got a table here at Delia's in Saudi Daisy, ready to delight in a plate of authentic Mexican food. Delia's spreads a rich selection, loaded nachos, crazy chicken, homemade tamales, maybe the enchiladas with beef, chicken, pork, quesadillas. Every dish beautifully pictured on the menu to help us decide. Join us for lunch or dinner. We're at Delia's in Saudi Daisy on Dayton Pike near the Thrasher Light. Here's dinner. Delia's uses the freshest ingredients, cooked to perfection. Nachos, homemade. Delia's open every day except the Lord's Day. For lunch and dinner, treat yourself to Delia's genuine Mexican food. In Saudi, call 521-7145. That's 521-7145.
Social media, we're on that. Hot News Talk Radio on Facebook, at Hot News Talk Radio on Twitter. Download the TuneIn app and follow us anywhere at any time. AM 1240, Hot News Talk Radio.
Here's a game that you need to be watching this weekend. If you're an Atlanta Falcons fan and you want to see your team right the ship
on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio.
Thank you, Patrick. You want to see your team right the ship? Falcons versus 49ers this weekend. And I know the Falcons are 7-point favorites, but here's the thing also about the Falcons. They're playing the 49ers, and the 49ers are awful. So it's not going to be great football from one side of these teams, and their starting quarterback is Blaine Gabbert. And I think that Blaine Gabbert, the last time that we saw him, was throwing more interceptions than touchdowns at such an alarming rate that I was shocked that he was still the quarterback of a football team. They drafted him 15th in the first round, which I believe that everyone thought was way too high. But hey, look, he looked talented coming out of Missouri. He had all of the quote-unquote intangibles, whatever it is that means. And he just looked awful in Jacksonville, which it's very easy to do that, look awful in Jacksonville. But, now he's in San Francisco, and he can look awful for them too, because that Atlanta defense is very good. If you're a Falcons fan, I'd give that one a watch. Though that to me, for everyone else, that's a reasonable watch, right? Like, that's not a big time. You have to be watching that one. You don't really need to watch that game unless you're a Falcons fan and you really want to see your team pound another team to death, because while they're 7-point favorites, they're going to beat the 49ers by much more than 7 points. I'm not going to say that's a lock, but they're going to beat the 49ers by much more than 7 points. Also, the Titans play the Saints, and they're playing for their playoff lives because despite the fact that they are 1-6, they're still very much in the playoff race for reasons that God only knows. The AFC South is so bad. It is so bad. They could still make the playoffs from that. I don't know that I've ever seen a division look so bad that halfway through the season, you're looking at the one-loss team and they're 1.5 games back of the top team in the division. That's a 1-win team. Looking up at the 2-win team in that division, and whose starting quarterback has not actually won a game this season. Andrew Luck has not won a game this season. We'd just like to point this out that Matt Hasselbeck won both of those games, which is pretty crazy. Just blows my mind every time I look at that. Every single time. Every single time. Okay. Here's a game that you need to be watching because of the impact that it's going to have on how all of this college football playoff stuff shakes down. I know it's not in the SEC. It is in the Big 12. It's TCU and Oklahoma State. Going to be an incredibly good game regardless. And I just like good football. And I know that I'm not alone in this. I just like good football. Like, I will just watch good college football. And the thing is that TCU is ranked 8th. I don't understand that in a lot of ways. I don't know why they're necessarily ranked behind Baylor. They have the stronger schedule. Just little hiccups and inconsistencies in the first poll of the playoff. It's not a huge one because you're TCU and you win out. It doesn't matter that you started 8th. You're Baylor and you win out. It doesn't matter that you started 6th behind some one-loss teams. And we're starting to look at TCU gaining their identity. They've gained a lot of their identity on offense. They look offensively like the team that we thought that they would look like. But on defense, they don't. Like, TCU in the past has never been like the worst defense ever. But this year, they look really bad on defense. The Texas Tech game is my big example of that because they look like they're not interested in playing defense. It's like, let's just get the ball back as fast as we can and try and score again. I've never seen a team look like that, but against West Virginia last week, they won 40-10. So the defense starting to show up against the Dana Holgorsen squad in West Virginia that can really spread you out and score. Like, West Virginia is more capable than Texas Tech. And TCU did not give up 1 million points to them. So maybe we're headed in the right direction as far as their identity on defense. If TCU can win this game, they can properly eliminate Oklahoma State from having any real hope of moving forward. And it will be probably their first really big time quality win this season. The front half of these Big 12 schedules have been a joke. The back half is where the real danger is. And it's going to be interesting to see how those shake out. It's probably reversed for the SEC. So this week in the SEC, this is as good as it gets. This is as good as it gets because LSU plays Alabama in the game that you have to be watching this weekend. You must watch it. You must see the two lines get at it. It's going to be a battle in the trenches. It's going to be a battle running the football. Both of these teams play that smash mouth style of football, which is very rare to see in college football these days because of how much the game has changed to such a passing game, to such a spread game. It's not the same anymore, and I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, but anytime you get these throwback games, these games where schools play like they used to, highly entertaining, and I think that we don't appreciate low-scoring games in college football anymore. Touchdowns, lots and lots of touchdowns. It's exciting. It's flashy. I do enjoy watching Baylor play. They score lots and lots and lots, but a grinded-out win, a good old-fashioned, these two teams are having trouble scoring, and it's not because their offenses are inept, but because their defenses are so good. That's fun to watch. Okay, like a 7-3 game between Missouri and Vanderbilt is not what I am talking about. Vanderbilt might actually be that good at defense. Missouri isn't, though. They're just bad. And Vanderbilt is that bad at scoring. But when you see LSU and Alabama, and the reason why I thought that was brilliant what Bill said yesterday, Sporting News national college football writer Bill Bender joins us Thursdays with Bill. Thought that was brilliant what he said, that LSU versus Alabama is the game of the decade because, A, the winner of the SEC for a very long time has gone through either of those teams, including each other. They go through each other to try and win the SEC and to represent in a national title game. They go through each other. Then the dominance of the SEC has a lot to do with both of those teams and the big games that they've played with each other. Most memorably, when they played each other to end the season and then in the national championship game. Like, these games matter and they send waves and shockwaves through all of college football. You know? It's important. It's incredibly, incredibly important. And also fun. It's not like, you know, these games have these ramifications and the only reason why you're watching it is because of what could happen. But the carnage there, when you look at what ends up happening, college football and the world that it's created now with the 14 playoff, and I don't know that expanding the playoff necessarily makes this more exciting. Because here's the thing, you start expanding the tournament, and the reason why I like it at 4 teams and why I think it should probably stay at 4 teams is because the conversations that you have about who should get in and who doesn't get in, that's where the fun is. We're going to be talking about this from now until the end of the season. We're going to be talking about this from now until late December. That's incredible fun. This is where the fun is. If you expand it beyond this, the teams that you're talking about getting in are going to be the lower quality 2-3 loss teams. We're not going to be talking about should Baylor have been in the top 4. What about Alabama and their 1 loss? Does Alabama deserve to be in the top 4 with their 1 loss? We're talking about the quality of wins. We're going back and looking through the college football season at these games, at the older games that have happened, because we need to make sure that we're right about this. I don't think we should expand it anymore. That this 4 teams, perfect. I think 2 teams is too few. Obviously, just choosing number 1 and number 2, that I don't know that necessarily gives you the national champion. But 4 teams is perfect. Absolutely perfect. Should not expand anymore. I don't think. Because LSU and Alabama being in right now has caused such a firestorm across the nation, because look at Alabama getting in with their 1 loss and SEC bias talk and everything like that. And there is no SEC bias. They've just had more difficult schedules to this point. You know what I mean? Like, if they're both in at the end, then, okay, you can probably start to have that conversation. But to this point, they have had the tougher schedules. I mean, it's not even up for debate. That's not a conversation to have. Okay, and now we have a different conversation entirely, right? We just have the conversation of whether or not the committee favors one conference over another. And I think that there are some biases there, but not necessarily the ones that you're thinking of, where it's just like they like the SEC and no matter what the SEC does, they're going to be in. But whether or not you have whether or not you have a title game in your conference, that's going to matter in the end. So there's going to be some anti-Big 12 bias because they have no title game. It just is. This is AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio, Clutch with Keon Rose. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, as well as the TuneIn Radio app, and on hotnewstalkradio.com. You can open us up in a tab, minimize us. Christmas shop while you listen to Hot News. There's your advice of the day. Another game that you should be watching this weekend, Tennessee, South Carolina. And the reason why I say that is because I like the evolution of Joshua Dobbs this season. I think a lot of us wanted a dual threat quarterback. And the guy that started playing quarterback for Tennessee at the beginning of this season was incredibly one-dimensional. It was one-dimensional Josh Dobbs. He ran and he threw screens all the time, and he threw short passes all the time, to the point where I wondered on this very show, is Joshua Dobbs even capable of throwing the ball downfield? Because I have not seen it. I had not seen it. I didn't know if he was capable of it or not, and I didn't know if they were hiding him. And then Joshua Dobbs, the last couple of weeks, 2 to 3 weeks, has just unleashed. He has become a different quarterback almost. And the game has opened up for him a lot. And getting him out of the pocket is important. I don't think that Tennessee I still don't think they get him out of the pocket as much as they could to make the game a whole lot easier for him. Because when he is a threat to run, those passing lanes open up for him, and he is capable of getting the ball down the field. And South Carolina, even without Spurrier able to be there, this team is still dangerous. This team is still dangerous. And Butch Jones talked about it in his press conference earlier this week. This is what he had to say.
Since Coach Spurrier left, South Carolina, I think, won a game and went into a tough place against a good team and gave them all they wanted down at Texas A&M. Is this, in any sense, a more dangerous team or more energized team that makes it a little harder for you?
Well, first of all, it's a talented football team. You can't hide from that. You just have to look at, the players. It's a very, very talented football team. It is a dangerous football team. They're flying around. They're having fun. They're putting it all out there. They're playing with very good effort. They're coming in here expecting to win. And this is going to be a great challenge for us. So when you look at the dynamics, when you look at the talent on this football team, yes, this is a great challenge for our football team, in a lot of regards.
And so that this is going to be a tough challenge for Tennessee, I think probably more so than people give it credit for. and I think it's going to be one of the sneaky, interesting games of the weekend. So let's just recap here as we're heading out the door. Tennessee, South Carolina, watch it. LSU, Alabama, watch it. TCU, Oklahoma State, watch it. Atlanta, San Francisco, only watch that if you're an Atlanta fan. Tennessee, Titans versus New Orleans Saints, maybe just watch that if you're a Titans fan. It is going to be interesting to see what Mularkey does as the interim head coach of that team against the Saints. Drew Brees is pretty much unstoppable, and Benjamin Watson looks like one of the top 5 tight ends in the league because he's catching passes from Drew Brees. But pretty much just watch that if you're a Titans fan or you're a Saints fan, and all others need not apply. That's the games that you need to be watching this weekend. Thank you for joining me this week on Clutch with Keon Rose here on AM 1240 Hot News Talk Radio. Make sure to check us out on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Search Hot News Talk Radio and tweet at me during the games. I'm at SportsCloud on Twitter. I will see you Monday at 1.
You give us 12 minutes and 40 seconds, we'll give you Chattanooga and the world.
News Talk 1240. Are you tired of working in corporate America, or have you recently lost your job?